Hi, my name is Dale. I'm one of the pastors here at Redeemer Bible Church, and this is your daily word for Wednesday, May 13th. As we continue reading in the book of Luke, we have arrived to chapter 20. And one of the things that stands out to me about chapter 20 is just the craftiness of the Pharisees and the scribes. They knew in their own hearts that the reason they didn't care for Jesus is he really threatened their authority in the culture. He brought a different kind of authority, and they didn't see it, as we talked about yesterday. They just didn't recognize Jesus for who he was. They didn't recognize that he was there on the authority of the Father, even though Jesus continually told them whose authority he was there by, that he was there representing the Father in heaven. And we know that through some other Gospels, especially the Gospel of John. Jesus continually, it was written down by John, how often he just talked about the authority that he had in the Father. And as we talked about yesterday, the Pharisees just missed it. The scribes just missed it. The religious people of the day missed who the person of Christ was. And what they would try to do, they would try to trap him. And we see that in today's reading. I'm going to hone in specifically on them trying to trap Jesus about paying taxes to Caesar. They really thought that they were being crafty. And that, in the reading where it talks about, they feared the people more than they were fearing God at this point. And their fear of people, their fear of losing their own authority really was what was driving them to the point where it says here, the scribes and the chief priests sought to lay hands on him at that very hour. Now, they're not talking about praying, right? They're not talking about laying hands on the Lord to pray for him. They're talking about laying hands on him to bring him harm, to arrest him, to stone him. They were that angry and that challenged by the words and the teaching of Christ. So they were so afraid of the people that they sent spies to follow Christ. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. Jesus couldn't go anywhere without the religious people following him just to make sure that he wasn't going to break the law. And sure enough, Luke writes that down for us to see that they schemed, they planned, they tried to ensnare Jesus in a trap. And of course, as it says in the word, Jesus knew what they were up to. And he challenged them by answering just truthfully. So he basically said, hey, listen, who's got a coin? Somebody give me a coin. And somebody gave him a coin. And he says, whose face is on this coin? Caesar's, right. So render to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God what is God's. And what is God's? God, what he's saying there is give God your allegiance, give God your worship. Honor God by following him. Honor God by responding to the Messiah that he sent. But again, the Pharisees just missed it. And for us, the one thing we need to realize is that we can't miss it either. Right? We have to see Jesus for who he is. We have to see Jesus as the Messiah. He's the only one that can make atonement for sin. He's the only one that can solve the problem that we have. And for those of us who are in the faith, he's the only one through the Holy Spirit, the triune God is the only one who can help us grow, who can help us die to ourselves and give to God what is God's, which is what? Our lives. Our very lives are a complete and total sacrifice, an act of worship to God. So it's a little bit shorter video today, but I just want to challenge all of us to remember that this isn't necessarily about paying taxes. I've seen lots of sermons where pastors will say, see, just pay your taxes. Well, sure, you should pay your taxes. But what this this verse is really about, what this passage is really about, is you giving to God what is God's. And that is your life. So this is the word of the day, and I hope that it's been a blessing to you. Keep reading ahead. We're going to come back tomorrow and dive into some more of Luke chapter 20. God bless you guys.